Ron, who are the donkeys in this picture? Oh, looks like you're muted.
That is Big Frida and her baby Beatrice, both of whom have been adopted. Um, Beatrice was one of my favorite donkeys ever. She's so sweet and so gorgeous.
So
I miss
fluffy.
her terribly. So fluffy.
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Um, Great. Well, while we are waiting for folks to sort of trickle in, well, we're not even at time yet, so we've got worlds of time. But those of you who are here already, thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here. I also want to take a moment to greet everybody who is watching the recording of this. Thank you for catching us on the replay. Glad to have you here as well. Um, but yeah, if you guys want to throw in the chat who you are, what organization you work for, and if you like, you can answer this question. What is one way that you engage new supporters? So when somebody finds you for the first time, makes contact with you, what's one way that you welcome them and sort of contact them back? Love to see what everybody has to say. Also, one of these days, I'm going to figure out how to play music on the beginning of a webinar without it sounding really bad.
I could sing. This ain't Texas. This ain't hold on. Na, 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 na.
Tim, great to see you. Thanks for coming. Thank you for your honest answer in the chat. You don't know about how you first contact people. It's great. Megan, welcome. Awesome. You have a newly created donor welcome series. That's lovely. Anybody else wants to throw an introduction into the chat? We'll just give it another minute here and then we will get started. Hi, Michelle. Ron, it looks like it stopped raining where you are. That's good.
Yeah. Storm yesterday and storm tomorrow, but we have a day of break. We also have a senior center here for our tour, so.
Oh, wow. That's fun. Hi, Mia. Welcome. Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Jess. Thank you guys so much for sending your intros. Glad to see we already have some people who are using welcome emails. That's awesome. Okay, so to get started, by way of introduction, my name's Patty. This is an extremely goofy photo of me. I'm with the Purpose Collective. There's three of us in this organization. My two colleagues are also here, Julia and Michelle. So you might see one of them jump in at some point in this webinar, either in the chat or to add something. We are digital marketing consultants who work with nonprofits. So we do all things related to online communication, social media, email, website, etc. And with me here today is Ron King, co-founder and CEO of Oscar's Place. Ron, I don't know if you want to say a quick hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be in Out of the Mud for a webinar, so it's a good day.
Yeah, Ron runs a donkey sanctuary, and donkeys are the best animals ever, basically. So Ron's one of our clients. We've worked with him on setting up several different welcome journeys for his donors, his supporters. So we invited him to co-present with us today so that you could hear it from him, not just from us, about how this works, how effective it is, um, what works well, etc. So please feel free to ask questions at any time in the chat, either to one of us or to Ron. We feel like he brings a really invaluable perspective today, and we want to make sure all of you guys take advantage of that. Okay, so I feel like I know the answer to this first poll already from what some of you have said in the chat, but you can just throw your answers in A, B, or C. Have you ever set up an automated email welcome journey? So answer A is yes, B is no, and C is what is a welcome journey? All right, we've got one yes answer. Lots of yeses. I love that. It's awesome. You guys are setting yourselves apart from the rest. We have a few no's. Great. You're in the right place. And nobody has answered what's a welcome journey, which means all of you guys are way more experienced than the average nonprofit professional. If you're all familiar with this concept, you are ahead of your peers. So well done. Okay. Real quick question for Ron. When we first met you, did you know what an email welcome journey was?
I did not. I specifically remember, so Oscar's Place launched exactly 3 years ago. I come from the business corporate world, but everything about donkeys and dirty fingernails and fundraising was all brand new to me. And I dove in the deep end and was doing a million things. Somebody suggested that I meet these people called Purpose Collective. I found time to Zoom. And on that Zoom, Patty said to me, what is like, what do you say to donors once they donate? And I was like, I didn't even understand the question. I was like, uh, I've never spoken to a donor. Now, this was, I think, 3 or 4 months in. So we were just starting to get donors, but the concept of saying anything, much less developing a relationship, was completely foreign to me. So I had never heard of it at all.
Thank you. Yeah, that I feel like is the usual response we get from people. Like, what are you talking about? What's email welcome journey? So by a quick way of introduction, an email welcome journey is a series of emails that are sent directly after someone takes an action with you, and they're usually triggered automatically. So the difference here is that normally when we send out mass communications like email newsletters, that's on our timeline. Like we might decide we're going to do that on the first of the month. These are triggered by your supporters' timeline. So whenever they decide to donate to you or whenever they decide to join your email newsletter list, that's when this series is triggered for them. So it's very personal to the action that they took. And these have a lot of different names: nurture series, a drip campaign. We use the term welcome journey, welcome series pretty interchangeably. So if anyone has questions about what this is, feel free to throw it in the chat again. I think all of you guys are pretty experienced with this. Okay, so why would we send one of these? Research shows that the best time to contact someone is immediately after they take an action with you. And that immediately part is really key here. So someone is pretty fired up about you if they just decided to donate to you or to give you their email address or to whatever it might be. And we wanted to bring up a real world example here of why that immediately window of time, immediate, is so important. I know sometimes people say like, well, you know, when you donate, you get added to my newsletter list and then you'll hear from me. but that's not always immediate. That could be a few weeks later, it could be a month later. So here's an example we'd like to walk you through. Picture a cute little restaurant. You're going to go eat dinner at this restaurant tonight. When you find a new restaurant to go to, um, how did you get to that point? I'm curious to know if anyone wants to throw their answer in the chat. How do you usually find a new restaurant to try out? How do you end up at a place like this? Or if anyone wants to unmute and share that way, you're welcome to do that as well. Word of mouth, awesome. So maybe your friend told you about this restaurant. Um, Google reviews, Google Plus reviews. So yeah, if you're gonna look it up and see like, does this restaurant have 5 stars? Do people like it? Are a lot of people going here? Um, Reviews on Yelp, Google Maps. Yeah, all of these are great. So you want to find something close by. You want to find something that's well reviewed. Um, Maybe you're looking for something really specific, like you really want Peruvian food. So you Googled the best Peruvian restaurant in your town. The point here is that you put some effort into this, into finding this particular restaurant on this particular night. So imagine you walk into this restaurant, scenario number one, and the staff greets you with a smile. They offer to take your coat. They ask if you've been here before. They want to know if you'd prefer to sit inside or outside. Um, how does this make you feel if this is how you're greeted in scenario number one? Again, feel free to throw those answers in the chat or unmute. You feel good. Yeah, you feel welcomed. Thumbs up emoji. It feels like this was a nice personal welcome for you. Okay, scenario number two. Imagine instead when you walk into this new restaurant that you spent a lot of time researching or that comes highly recommended from your friends, instead you're ignored. And imagine you can't get anybody's attention. The staff isn't even making eye contact with you. What effect would this reaction have on you? Would you feel good about your choice to come to this restaurant? You'd probably leave. Yeah, you feel pretty awkward. Thumbs down. I love it. Yeah, I might question like, are you even open? Like, should I have made a reservation? Should I go? Am I wanted here? Um, it's not a great feeling. And so we use that example to illustrate that we all want to be welcomed. We all want our decisions to be validated and we all want to be appreciated. It's part of our nature. And so when we follow as a nonprofit, when we follow a supporter's action with silence or with nothing more than an automated confirmation email, then we're being like that restaurant in scenario number two. They put a lot of time into finding us. We might have come really highly recommended to them from someone else. They might have researched our specific cause because they're really passionate about it. They're fired up. And in that window of time, immediately following their action, if we don't do anything, it's not going to feel great to them. And we run the risk of losing them as a lifelong supporter. Okay, so another quick poll. Do you guys know what your email open and click rates are? Answers you can throw in the chat. Yes, no, or unsure. Sometimes, honest answer. Yes, yes. Ron, I'm curious, do you know what your open and click rates are off the top of your head?
No, I know they're great. That's all I care about.
That's true. You do have great open and click rates. All right, most of you guys are familiar. If you also want to share what your open and click rates are in the chat, you can. You don't have to. But the average, the industry average, according to MailChimp, is an open rate of about 25% and a click rate around 2 or 3%. So if you're in the neighborhood of this, you're doing great. If you have a larger email list, your rates might be a little bit lower. It's harder to get higher when you have more people. But the reason that we bring this up at this moment is because we have seen time and time again that these email welcome journeys, they see a 50% average open rate. So they are doubly as effective as your regular newsletters. People really want to get these emails and they're eager to open them, they're eager to read them. Here are the Oscars Place email stats. So industry average is 25% open rate. Ron's emails are doing great. They're at 37.5%. Click rate is right around average. And then here for two donor journeys that we've set up for Oscars Place, you can see there's a 58% open rate on one of them, 65% open rate. And these numbers are like impossibly high. Click rate is 7.2% and 17%. I've never ever seen a 17% click rate anywhere else in my life. So we present this as evidence that these journeys, they work. People want to read them. People want to engage with them. The numbers say it all. Okay, let's get started. I feel like throughout this whole presentation, I just want to keep asking you, Ron, like which donkeys are in each of these photos, but I feel like that's going to sidetrack us.
And these three are a little bit complicated because these three look like identical triplets, don't they?
They do. They do. Same pattern on their nose. Okay, so today we're going to talk about creating a new donor welcome journey, and we're going to use Oscar's Place as our case study. So for those of you following along at home, we're going to be asking questions all along the way to help you think about what do you want your donor welcome journey to look like. So if you already have one in place, it can help you think about, do you want to add to it? Do you want to tweak it? Is it right where it needs to be? And if you haven't yet created yours, hopefully you'll have the beginning of it by the end of this webinar. So what we recommend for any welcome journey is that it's 3 to 5 email messages. And those messages come starting immediately and going up to about a month after the initial action. You don't want to go too much longer than that. You run the risk of people forgetting what the action was that triggered these emails. And this is the really key one. We want to make sure that we're always providing something of value to your supporters. So this is not an opportunity for you to just talk more about yourself or tell people how great you are. They're already convinced that you're great. So now we need to give them something that is valuable to them. So yeah, this is about them, not you. And specifically today, we're talking about a new donor welcome journey. So this is for anyone who makes a new one-time donation. This is the structure. We start with a plain text thank you message. It comes within the first 24 hours. Then we send a story of impact, comes 2 to 3 days later. And we ask folks to take an action, not donating, but another action. Then we'll send them a survey. And finally, we'll ask them to become a monthly donor. So this is the timing that we recommend for each of these. And we're happy to share these slides later for anyone who wants to jot down this recommended timing. Okay, so the trigger is when a one-time donation is made. And the first goal is to express gratitude. So if your journey does nothing other than just thank your donor over and over and over and over and over again, it's successful. You don't have to do anything else other than that. I don't think you can thank your donors too much. I don't know, Ron, have you ever had a donor come to you and say, please stop thanking me, it's really annoying?
Nope.
No. If anything, we run the risk of not thanking them enough. So if this is the only thing your journey does, great. We also want to validate their decision to give. So to say, you're wonderful, you did a really good thing, you're changing the world, thank you. And draw them more fully into the story of the organization. So we want them to know they're part of something big, they're part of something important, they have a really, really major role here, and we're glad they're here. If we can, we'd love to convert folks to become monthly donors, or at the very least, plant the seed that monthly donations are an option and they should think about it. Okay, so the email number one, this is the plain text gratitude message from the founder or the executive director, and it's going to come within 24 hours, within a day after the donation. And here's the message that we send for Oscar's Place from Ron. So this is basically saying, hey, I saw your donation come in. I wanted to reach out to say thank you in all caps because Ron, that's how you normally write your email messages, right?
Yep.
So we're trying to hit the tone of Oscar's Place, the tone that Ron would usually use. We don't want this to be too dry or too professional. We want it to sound personal. And so there's a little bit of Ron's story in here, and there's a lot of you language. So we're saying your support is so important. Thanks again for loving and caring for these deserving animals alongside of us. It's very you focused. We're so glad you're here. We love you. You're wonderful. Thank you. So question for Ron, how often do people respond when you, since this is going out automatically, when you're sending a plain text email like this? And what do they say?
I mean, we get a lot of responses, and I think it's about 50-50 of people thanking us for the work we're doing or thanking me for the work that I do, and people sharing their own stories. As much as people want to hear from us, they also want to be heard. And so we get a lot of stories, and I get a few marriage proposals. So it's a mix that has happened.
Oh, I love
It's a
that.
very powerful welcome journey. But
Powerful
yeah,
enough.
I get quite a few
Right, right.
replies. And they're always very positive and either saying thank you, Ron, for all the work you do, or this is my experience I had with the donkey on my grandfather's ranch when I was 3 years old. So it's great.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, they feel like they have a personal connection to the work, which is great. It's the goal of this first email. Okay, so just to break this down again really quickly, email is written from the first person. So it's not the royal we, it's not like this is an official communication from Oscar's Place, signed to the team. This is from Ron, has his email signature in there. It's you focused. So Ron's not saying, I'm pretty wonderful and I started this animal sanctuary and I guess you're here too, whatever. But back to me, it's very much like, thank you, you're great. So glad to have you here. And it feels really personal, it feels vulnerable, it feels meaningful. I mean, the types of responses that it elicits, you can tell that people are really finding meaning in this message and wanting to share their own personal stories. Gratitude is the goal, and it's a true plain text message. So that means when you get this message, it is indistinguishable from a message where Ron actually would sit down at his laptop and type something to you. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. We send this through MailChimp. If anybody else also uses MailChimp and wants the code for our true plain text message, we can send that to you. It's just a matter of coding your own and stripping out all the formatting that MailChimp puts in there. Okay, so for those of you building your own donor journeys, this is what I want you to think about for email number one. Who should this come from? Do you have a Ron in your organization who's the face of the organization? Everyone would love to hear from them. Also, what's your tone? Is it playful? Is it funny? Is it goofy? Is it more serious and heartfelt? What feels right for the work that you do and for the personality of your organization? So think
And
about
Patty,
that for
I'll
your
I'll
number
talk
one.
for a second about tone while people are having their thoughts. So we spend a lot of time, Purpose Collective and me and Madison, talking about tone, analyzing literally every single word, because we never try to pretend like this is not an automated email campaign. Like we're honest about what it is, but it needs to be a real message that I really mean, that I really wrote. That expresses gratitude. So we really focus on tone, and we have guiding principles that we operate by and that operate all of our messages. So we don't try to trick anybody that I sent them this email, but we are very specific that the tone matches me and the organization. so that it's received authentically.
Yeah, well said. Okay, email number 2. This is where we're going to tell a story of impact. So we're going to draw people more fully into the work that's happening at the organization by telling them a story. As human beings, our brains are wired for stories. We love them, we eat them up, can't get enough of them. And this is going to come 2 to 3 days after the previous email. Some folks have pushed back on this timing before. So basically, if someone makes a donation, they get an automated receipt, then they're getting a plain text thank you, and then they're getting this email all within a week. Some folks think that feels like a lot. We think this is actually really perfect timing. Again, those open rates, those click rates show that people want these messages, they're opening these messages. We're hitting that, striking while the iron is hot, we're hitting that sweet spot right after their action. So if anyone has doubts about this timing, I encourage you to try it out, see what your open rates are. This is absolutely what we recommend. And the story that we told from Oscar's Place is the story of Patches. And Patches has a pretty powerful story. He was in rough shape when he got to Oscar's Place. He was basically dying of starvation. He had this condition where his body was consuming itself to try to stay alive. It was an emotional roller coaster. Ron and his team rushed him to the hospital. They weren't sure if he was going to make it, and miraculously he bounced back and he made a full recovery. He will never get his eyesight back. That's something that is lost forever. But now he's a friendly, trusting donkey. He's completely loved by everybody. He can't see, but he can hear. He recognizes the sound of his name being called. Um, and at the end of this story, we bring it back to the donor and say again, thank you for believing that donkeys like Patches deserve a second chance. This was a miracle and you made it possible. This is the kind of work that you are supporting. So really quickly, before I ask Ron another question, how many people, just hearing this story of Patches, how many of you are unclear on what it is that Oscar's Place does and whether or not their work is important? How many of you are like, I don't really get it. What do they do? Any confusion? I'm getting crickets. So this is the power of a story, something to keep in mind. All right, Ron, what kinds of stories do your supporters respond best to? How do they respond to the Patches story, for example?
I mean, people respond great to any story because we tell stories really well. We're really lucky to be in an environment where we have 147 stories to choose from. I'll tell you that when I started this, I really pushed back on the length and details of the stories, both in email and in social media, which Purpose Collective also does for Oscar's Place, because my traditional corporate marketing told me that the shorter the better. And that has not been our experience. The more detail, the longer the story, people are reading them fully and really moved by it. And, you know, with the Patches story, for example, that is a 1000% true story that really happened, that is told exactly as it felt when it was happening. And we don't sensationalize anything because I think people can smell it. And people love to know that they're making a real difference. And, you know, they're not all, oh my God, you saved this donkey's life. Sometimes they're like, look at this beautiful baby that just got born that we didn't know was even pregnant. You saved 2 lives for the price of one. And then sometimes they're the effects that working here has on David, who lost his wife 3 years ago. So they're all different stories, but people love these stories, and the stories, you know, are long and detailed, and people read them and respond to them and then quote them back to me all the time. Hey, we had a Valentine's Day special yesterday, and the number of people who sent us Valentines for Patches is unbelievable, because they connected with him through that story. So they love a story.
Awesome. Okay, just to break it down real quick, this second email, it's a first person narrative or as close to it as possible. Obviously, we can't tell a story of a donkey from their first person perspective, but we chose just one donkey. We're not talking about statistics. We're not talking about all 147 animals. That story of one person, one creature's journey is really powerful. And like Ron said, if you can tell a really, really good story, even if it's long, that's great. People are going to eat it up. If it's heartwarming, if it's sweet, if it's emotional, doesn't matter as long as people um, get engaged in the story, it's going to have a wonderful effect. It's still you focused though. Remember, we brought it back to the donor in that last paragraph. We're not just tooting our own horn. We're not just saying, look how great we are. We're saying you are part of this story too. This is possible because of you. The donor is the hero. Another thing that we always strive for is we try to keep things to a sixth grade reading level. This is something we talk a lot about when we're talking about language and tone and how do we want to come across. We want to make sure that we're approachable. This tool that I have linked here, we can also throw this in the chat. This is a free communication audit tool from Bloomerang. And basically you can copy and paste any piece of text into this tool and it will tell you two things. It'll tell you the reading level. It'll also tell you how much you language you use versus we focus language. So I've often put communications from nonprofits in here and it came back at like a 16th grade reading level. I don't know what that is, like college, grad school. That's way too high. So think about using simple language like this was hard, things were bad, then they got better. It's great now. That type of simple language as opposed to like infrastructure improvements leading to better KPIs. Try to avoid the jargon and the more complicated language.
And Patty, to your point about timing and how some people feel like it's too quickly, there is no ask. And my experience has been that that catches people by surprise. Because what I think most people do is, thank you, can I have another? And people are so accustomed to that. So I think when they get all the way through it and they're like, huh, they didn't ask me for anything. I think that is why the timing is perfect because there's no ask. I think that's an important part of email number 2.
Yeah. That's a great point. Just gratitude at this point, not asking for anything. Okay, so when creating your own journey, think about what amazing story you can tell. Is there one person, um, one perspective that you can share? I know sometimes for those organizations who work with sensitive communities, like victims of trafficking, for example, there are privacy issues. We don't want to tell someone else's story. That's their business. But is there a story you can tell of a staff member's perspective of how this work has changed their life or how they saw something happen that was really meaningful to them? Think about a way that you can bring in that singular perspective, that singular story, instead of talking about statistics or the problem at large. Okay, email number 3, this is an engagement request. So we're asking them to engage with us. We're asking them to do something, but we're not asking them for money. This could be anything. In your case, this could be completing a survey, signing a petition, sharing a photo on Facebook, coming to an event, volunteering with you, whatever it feels like the right fit for your organization. But again, do not ask for a donation at this point. To Ron's point, people are going to treat your emails better because you are not asking them for money at this point. This is 1 week after email number 2. And here's what we have for Oscar's Place. So this is an email that educates people on the plight of donkeys around the world, the fact that their population is currently threatened. And it gives folks an image and a caption and says, will you post this on Facebook for us? Will you help us spread the word? So Ron, I'm curious to know what, besides donating, what are the ways that people like to engage with Oscar's Place?
People do love to share our mission on social media in particular. Our share numbers are through the roof. and they love to share their own story. I mean, donkeys are one of those things that people are nostalgic about. So I get lots and lots and lots of people sharing with me the story of the first donkey they ever met. Um, a few people share ass jokes because it's just so easy. But I think sharing about our mission is probably the biggest thing that people do. Check this out. Look how cute this is. Did you know donkeys were great? Um, I do think that it's important that we talk about the plight of donkeys in that email because it answers the question, why donkeys, which a lot of people have. But I do think our joyful content is shared more than our serious content.
Awesome. So again, to break this down really quickly, we want this to be warm and inviting. We're trying to get our supporters to become better friends with us. If we're inviting them to an event or inviting them to volunteer, we want the feeling to be that we want to get to know you, we want to hang out with you. Basically, we're inviting them into our inner circle. So what I want you guys to think about, those of you creating your own journeys, what is the action you can invite your donors to take? Do you want them to volunteer with you? Do you just want them to share a post on Facebook like we asked our own supporters to do? Do you want them to sign a petition? Do you work for a cause where you're trying to get legislation passed? Think about what is that easy action that is not a donation that we can ask folks to take. Okay, the fourth email, there's 5 emails in this series, so this is the second to last. And this one, we're sharing a survey. And this is coming about 1 to 2 weeks after the previous email. So this message is another really honest, heartfelt message from Ron that's saying, one of the hardest things about running a nonprofit is this idea of crisis fundraising. Like, oh my gosh, there's an emergency. We need your money right now. Hurry up and give. Um, Ron, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I know you feel very conflicted about this type of fundraising.
Yeah, of course. So people respond to crises. So the more donkeys I show with their eyeball hanging out, the more money I'll raise. But I feel like it's manipulative and it isn't exactly what we do. And our biggest needs are actually in operating costs. So keeping the payroll paid, keeping the lights on, keeping the animals fed, the really unglamorous, undramatic costs. And so, we struggle with that. Like, because nobody says, like, yes, let's get together, join hands, and pay PG&E. That's our electric company for people who don't know. Um, and so, how do we get that? And so, what we have decided to do is to just be honest that that's our struggle. Just share that with people and say this is the struggle we have, and get advice from them. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love this email because it feels really honest. It's saying like, hey, this is something we're struggling with. Like, what do you think? Do you have any advice for us? Do you want to weigh in on this thing that we're wrestling with? And again, we mix in some gratitude here. Thank you for being a generous person who believes that donkeys deserve a second chance. You're really special. Because of you, all of this change is happening in the world. So it's another opportunity to share gratitude, but is definitely focused on that invitation to get closer to us. Tell us what you think. Let's get to know each other. This is the survey. It's pretty short. So we snuck in a couple other questions here. We're asking, how'd you first hear about us? Multiple choice. And then what motivated you to make a donation to support our donkeys? And then the question that we asked in the email, what advice do you have for us to encourage more people to support everyday donkey expenses rather than only crisis fundraisers? So there's another trick you can do with survey questions where you're actually like educating people at the same time that you're asking them for their input. So this is an example of that, right? Like now people are going to think, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, so the next time I see Oscar's Place ask for donations because they're trying to buy hay to feed their donkey, something that's not a crisis, like I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think about how this is what they like to do. They like to avoid that crisis fundraising.
the other thing, Patty, is that one of the things that you pointed out to me on our first call was If you ask people for money, they give you advice. If you ask people for advice, they give you money. And that's part of the thinking behind that email is it is an ask-ish. So we were intentionally asking for advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
What tone does your audience respond to best? So I think we just wrapped up year 3, and Purpose Collective has been with me since the beginning, and we have learned so much, literally quarterly. But one of the things that we've learned really has hit home in the last year is the difference of animal welfare versus others, versus medical, versus the arts, versus other nonprofits. So, in the world of animal welfare, basically there's thousands of organizations saying the exact same thing to the exact same people. And so there is crisis and begging fatigue amongst people who have big hearts and love animals and are unfortunately on an animal lover list that everyone buys. So we have chosen to be super honest, super vulnerable. I mean, if I get a lump in my throat and a tear in my eye on a video, we brace for impact because people love that vulnerability. And so we just tell the truth. And, and sometimes I record videos for PC to embed in our emails that say, like, the truth is, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to ask you for because I'm not getting my bills paid. I don't want to rescue more donkeys that I can't afford to take care of. So we're very honest and open and direct in our communication, and people really respond to it. I think it's refreshing. People also find it really refreshing not to be begged for money and not to be shown eyeballs hanging out of animals all the time. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I think in this world of corporate communications and shiny marketing, I think people are starving more of that authenticity and that vulnerability. I think it really resonates with people for sure. Okay, so this email, you can oftentimes create a survey directly in your email provider. MailChimp, for example, has a survey feature. So click a link in their email, it goes straight to the survey. We recommend keeping it really short, 3 to 5 questions, maybe closer to 3 if you can. People are busy. And the easier the questions can be to answer, the better. So multiple choice or really short answers are great. And what I want all of you guys to think about at home is, what do you want to ask your supporters? What do you want to know? I mean, you could ask a question that similar to what Ron said about how people are nostalgic about donkeys and they talk about being 4 years old and then playing with the donkey on their grandfather's farm. Maybe your survey question is just trying to get people to think of nostalgic stories, like what connects you to this work? Have you ever had a donkey? Any questions that you can ask. The goal is for people to feel like, oh, yeah, I want to tell you this. I want you to know me better. I want to feel closer to you. That's what a survey is designed to do.
And it's worth saying that we have revisited and revised this journey multiple times. I mean, at one point we were asking somebody advice for unplugging. How do you unplug so this doesn't all take you down? And we realized that actually I'm really good at that. That isn't a real question. I'm really disciplined about how I unplug. Let's ask a different question. That is a real question. So we tweak it as we go, and but you don't pick a question and stick to it for 5 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the 5th and final email in this series, this is when we're going to ask people to become monthly donors. And this is going to be coming 1 to 2 weeks after the previous email, which should be about 1 month after the donation that started this series. And we're going to do this really carefully because, as we've been discussing, if they just gave money to us, they're not exactly open to us asking them for money again if we did it right away. So we're doing it carefully. We've warmed them up over the series of a few weeks. And the first thing that we do in this email is we call out their last donation. You recently made a caring decision to help donkeys. You recently made a donation. We see you. We remember you, and that's why we're asking you to become a monthly donor, because we know how much you care and we thought this program would be a good fit for you. So I think this is really important to make sure that your donors understand that this isn't just like a one size fits all email that goes out and they're like, wait, what the hell? Why are you asking me for money? I just gave it to you. I want to make it very clear. This is meant for you because you gave us money. And we're also going to make a case here for why you should join the monthly giving program. You get, in this case, you get to pick a donkey to sponsor. So that means you get individual donkey updates every quarter on your animal. I know people love sponsoring donkeys. I think I saw on the Valentine's Day post yesterday, Ron, that someone said her donkey, she has a picture of her donkey framed on her desk, or something like
Many
that.
people have said it. Incredible. I love it so much. The point I'll make about that is that these benefits, Purpose Collective and I launched our monthly giving program together, and it took us a year. Like we really, really worked on it, did a lot of research. We looked at what other people were doing for monthly programs, and most of those benefits were bullshit. And we didn't want bullshit benefits. We wanted real benefits. We wanted a program that actually mattered and rewarded people and kept them. And we did a lot of research around that. So, for instance, buy one, get one free merch, which was one of our benefits, people don't really care about that. What they care about is a quarterly video about their donkey. And so the 3 points are the benefits to doing this are actually valuable and are things that people want. So we are asking, but we're also giving. And we're not giving fluff, we're giving real things. So, and people love it.
Yeah, and I love how this is one thing I like about working with you is that you're willing to test things out, try them out, see how they work, look at the data, and try something different if it doesn't work. So I encourage all of you guys to do the same thing. Try offering a
I
benefit, see
also
if it's
just realized
attractive.
that I kind of sound like a snob. I want to be really clear. I am not bragging about how great we are. I'm so happy that things are working, and we work really hard on it. But I'm just sharing what's working because that's the point of this webinar, not because I'm like, look at us, we're awesome. I don't feel that way at all. Go ahead, Patty.
Um, okay, so how do you feel, Ron, about asking donors to give again just a
So
month
as you
after?
can tell, I'm really strict about this, and we talk about it a lot. And so we have monthly emails that go out, and people who are in the donor journey get excluded from those. I don't want people getting too many asks from us, and I don't want people thinking that we're ungrateful. And so all of the little, I never use language right, but the intrinsicities, what's that word? All the little things that Purpose Collective does in these emails is to satisfy my paranoia of turning off our donors, and to do this the right way. So I think it's great because we're giving something to them. Just having our hand out is not what we do. But we waited 4 emails to do it, and we offered something in exchange. And so yeah, I think it's great. It works. This is the audience. We look at data every other Tuesday. This is the audience that signs up for recurring monthly programs, the ones that have given to us already.
Definitely. Okay, so snapshot of email number 5. Again, gratitude focus, starting off by saying thank you for your gift. We remember you. We know exactly who you are. And we want to make a case for your support. We're not, like Ron said, we're not just with our hand out like, okay, time to give again. We are making a point to say, there's a reason you should give. You can change the world. You can make a difference in a donkey's life. You can become their sponsor. So I want all of you guys at home to think about what is that ask that you can make for people to join your monthly giving program. How are you going to ask them to change the world with you? Not just like, hey, we need more money and you could help us reach our budget goals, but like, here's an invitation to join a movement. What is that invitation in your case? Um, so I see a question here. I think this is from Katie, although she's showing up as my name in the chat, which is funny. What if your CRM mail feature doesn't offer the tech to automatically send the welcome series to new donors? That is a bummer if that's the case with your technology. I would say one, let's look into if there's some sort of third-party program we could use, like Zapier is a program that can make something happen automatically in another spot. Um, and if that's not an option, I think you should strongly look into changing your CRM. It can make a really big difference for making your life easier. So here's our 5 emails in summary. This is one way of doing it, a recommended structure for it, a structure that works well for Oscar's Place. You're welcome to add your own individual tweaks to this. Ron, anything else you want to add about these 5?
No, just that we invested a lot of time up front. Of every email, of every target, of every objective, of every word. And this is one of 3, I think. So it's a complicated matrix, but everything is super intentional. And I think it's really important to invest the time up front and make sure that you're saying what you want to say and that it's come and have people read it and make sure the message that you want to deliver is getting delivered. And if you do that, then you really only have to go back and tweak it annually. So
yeah, and another thing I wanted to mention was when we first set up your donor welcome journey, you had already been we set it up retroactively. You'd been getting donations for a few months, and we went back a few months to those donors and sent them the journey. But we
and said
altered
to
those.
them, I'm an asshole. I'm really sorry. I haven't said thank you. Like, because that was the truth. That's how I felt. And we said it. I don't know if we used the word asshole, but we were like, guys, I'm really sorry that you haven't heard from me. I'm new at this and I'm stuck. And I'm better now.
Yeah, and I thought that email was really well received. Again, it was that authenticity and that vulnerability where you said you should have heard from me earlier. You didn't. That's my fault. But I'm here to tell you now that I'm really grateful for
Yeah.
you. And I think it really resonated with people. Okay, so we have a question. Do you rotate through stories of impact? If so, how often do you rotate or change them out? We probably only really change the content of these journeys once a year. Um, I think we purposefully choose stories and engagement requests and surveys that are evergreen, so they're not particularly tied to any one point in time. Um, and as Ron mentioned, we talk a lot about like, is this still working? Should we change it? But really, the goal of these journeys should be that you should only think about them once a year. The rest of the time, they should just be working for you in the background while you get to go focus on other things.
And there shouldn't be very many times where somebody sees the same story twice. Like, very rarely would people activate a welcome journey twice for the same person. Um, so it's not like the story's getting fatigued because it's always reaching new eyeballs.
Yeah, someone would have to give twice with 2 different email addresses and like a different name in order to get this journey twice, because we make sure each donor only gets it once. Another question, do you find the survey is necessary in the welcome journey? Not necessarily. It's a nice touch point. But if you don't feel like you want to do a survey or if your tech doesn't make surveys easy, I think you could swap that out for another story of impact. Like we said earlier, people love stories.
And we had that's the one I think that we have gone back and forth with the most, and we've had different questions and different asks. Uh, I'll remind you that our survey is actually delivering a message of a struggle that I have. And so it's a very important survey to me because it's telling people that I struggle with something. So it's a give and take,
If you have thousands of supporters and have never done a welcome journey, should you start by sending one to everyone? So if we're talking about a donor journey, I would go back 1 to 3 months into the past and send the donor journey retroactively to those people. And I would do it in the way that we just talked about, where you're acknowledging, like, hey, sorry you didn't hear from us earlier, but we want to tell you now. Thank you so much. And then I would activate it for everybody from that point forward who donates. So if someone has been giving to you for 5 years, you put a donor journey into place now and they donate next week, I think they should get the donor journey. Some organizations don't love this idea. They feel like they'd much rather only send the donor journey to the brand new donors. But I think everybody likes to be thanked, even the folks who've been around for a while. And you can, when you're crafting the language of these journeys, you can make it so that it feels like a good fit both for your returning donors and for your brand new folks. These questions are great. Please keep asking them. In the meantime, we're going to share a few more tips, but please add more questions to the chat. One tip we went over a series that has 5 emails. You could just start with 3 if you want to. I know if you work at a nonprofit, you're very busy. So even if you just start with 1 email, as long as you're getting that automated email out there to start thanking people, something is better than nothing. You can always add to it later on when you have more time. And we also definitely recommend segmenting your list. So Ron talked about this a bit. Anybody who's receiving this welcome journey should be removed from your regular newsletter and your regular communication. So they should only get these welcome journey emails. They're very precisely timed, and we don't want to send someone accidentally like 2 or 3 emails in one day because we forgot that they're getting the welcome journey. So we want them to have a thoughtfully designed onboarding experience. And the final tip we'll say is, if you want to see this in action, you can go make a donation to Oscar's Place and you'll start getting the donor journey. Okay, another question. On average, how many new monthly donors do you think it's worth it to start a welcome journey? We have 1 to 2 new donors a month and already email them personally to say thank you within 2 business days of donating. That's lovely that you're calling your donors to thank them. I think that's awesome. I don't think there is a minimum required in order to start a welcome journey. One thing that's nice about a welcome journey is I think it pairs really well with other efforts. So again, I don't think you can thank your donors too much. So if they're getting an email that's telling them thank you, and then they're getting a phone call that's telling them thank you, I think that's great. I think it shows that you're celebrating them and you're happy about their support. The nice thing too about having an automated journey in place is that it kind of lets you off the hook if you're ever like super busy with something else, or if you're ever like, oh, I don't know, like in another country because you're visiting your nonprofit's location in Africa and you can't make a phone call as quickly as you usually could. The welcome journey can buy you some time so that you know your donor was thanked and you have a little bit more flexibility of when that personal phone call comes. This slide feels redundant at this point. You guys are already asking lots of great questions, but there's more. We have a couple minutes left. Another thing I want to add is that we do offer free office hours. So every Monday you can sign up for a time slot. You'll get one of us one-on-one for an hour, and we can use that time however you like. So you might sign up for an hour and say, okay, I made a welcome journey. Can you read it and give me feedback? Or I created a welcome journey, but I have no idea how to set it up in MailChimp. I don't understand how the automation works. Can you walk me through it? We're happy to do anything and everything in these office hours calls. Julia, Michelle, Ron, any other closing thoughts you guys want to add?
I think I'll just say that obviously I love working with Purpose Collective. They have been uh, fantastic to work with. They're true partners. We create together and we push back on each other all the time, and all with the end result of authentically and aggressively raising money, which we've done a great job at doing. Emails, are critical to our fundraising strategy. Social media is great and has lots of benefits. Press and PR has provided lots of benefits. Having people visit here, direct mail, all of these different avenues are all part of the casserole. That emails is where our relationship and our money comes from. So it's a very important part of what we do, and we set it up right. And it's a lot of work to set up, and then it's not a lot of work to maintain. So I'm really grateful that you asked me that embarrassing question 2.5 years ago, and that we put something in place to hit our numbers. So, and our goal 3 years ago was to be a fully self-sufficient nonprofit in 36 months, and which means raising our full operating budget through donations, which we did. So, well done.
Awesome. In the last minute here, there's a question about telling stories via an embedded video. A video is always a great idea if you can include it, but we encourage you to also tell the story itself in the text of the email. Don't assume that people are going to watch the video. If you remember, click rates are about 2 to 3% on average. Even if you get double that in your journey, 7% of people might click on that video. It means 93% of your recipients are not going to see it. So make sure that the message of the video is in the body of the email, because unfortunately there's no way to guarantee that your email will play the video for you. You can't play a video from within an email yet. So yeah, share a video, but make sure it's supported by the story itself written out. All right, that is the end of our time today. Thank you so much to everyone who came. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate your perspective. And please let us know if we can answer any questions for you. We're always here.
Bye, guys.